So about 27 years ago, I had a high voltage electrical accident. I was working for a hydroelectric company and was doing a survey in a power yard. So I had a survey rod in one hand and my right hand. I had a map in my left. And I was calling out numbers to the coworker. And standing beside these big transformers, it was a cement pad I was on. So I moved forward to the front, and somewhere along the way, the rod either touched the line or electricity jumped to the rod. But I had 138,000 volts traveled down the rod, entered into my right hand, and then it exited out the right foot. Also had a bright flash that caught my clothes on fire, resulting in third-degree burns to about 40% of my body. Then they medevaced me out later that night to Winnipeg, to the Health Science Center.
Well, we were living in Rochester, Minnesota at the time. So when we got the phone call from my sister, Mary, I could tell something was very wrong. She was crying. And she says, John's been electrocuted. And I was horrified because to me, electrocuted, you're dead, right? But then she explained that he was okay. My husband and I went to work the next day, and when we got off work, we jumped in the car and drove all the way straight through to Winnipeg and got to the Health Science Center in the middle of the night to see John, because they were going to be taking him in for surgery the next morning, and we wanted to be here before he went in. And we made several trips back and forth while John was in the hospital and rehab.
I nominated my sister Hazel for the Caregiver Award because it was just, you know, they came, as she mentioned, they came down quite a few times, and just being in the room. And I think I remember the very first time I woke up, I was still in intensive care, I think, and they were going to take me off to surgery. And she walked in and said, "Okay, brother, it's showtime." And right away, it's like, what do you mean showtime? Who's all going to be there? Like, they're all going to be staring at me or what? I spent 3 months on the burn ward, and they thought my arm and leg might be savable, but an infection got in, and they ended up amputating both limbs above the joints. And then it seemed my strength started coming back. I started getting better. And then I spent another 3 months or so in the rehab side. So close to 7 months in the hospital, and then in and out for a few more times to try and get prosthetics. And so it took, it was a journey, but we got through, and we're still dealing with a little bit of it now and then, but we're doing pretty good with it. I think it was a couple of years after my accident, I received an invitation to go to an afternoon event for burn survivors. And it was just they had a guest speaker. They had the surgeons that worked on me were there. And then I got to meet some other hydro employees that also had burns related. And it was, so my whole family came, mom and dad, Hazel, Tom, everybody, we were all there, my kids, and it was just a big family day kind of thing. And it was actually a big hit. So that's how it started. And then they did a couple more, one or two more years of that.
But it wasn't until they started having the weekend conferences that my husband and I would come up for the burn conferences. And little by little, I just would pitch in and help wherever they needed help. About the last 7, 8 years, I've been doing the registration desk, greeting the burn survivors as they come in and register for the conferences, and just still helping out wherever they need help. The Mamingwey Burn Society is a support group for burn survivors and their families. and caregivers, whoever can benefit from attending the conference. They break off into small groups, and you can attend whatever session you most benefit from. They have guest speakers that come in, most of them themselves, or I would say all of them themselves, are burn survivors.
When I started, I don't know, it was a year or two in, they asked me to do a talk, and I did one and shared my story a little bit. Hearing other survivors, it's uplifting in a way, like to hear. Sometimes you'd think that, oh, woe was me, it's kind of burned so bad, but then you meet another survivor, and it's just, it amazes you how well they've come along.
Oh, I'm in awe of him every day. He's just an amazing man. He's surpassed every, I mean, I had hand surgery in 2014 and had my hand in a cast, and it was my right hand, and I had to learn to do everything with my left hand. And I'm thinking to myself, my brother had to learn this, and he's got to do it every day of his life. How did he do this? Being part of the Mamingwey Burn Survivors has really helped me deal with some of the feelings that I had. I remember the first session that I attended as a family member and how it had affected our family. You know, John's my baby brother, and it was very, very hard for me, especially with them living so far away. And now I look forward to the conferences, and different ones will come up and I'll say, oh, hi, how have you been? We haven't seen you for so long.
Just nominating her because not only during that time, but she put a lot of time into the conferences, and like not just my support, but supporting others, like just a caregiver way. But she's still supportive of me. If I needed anything, she'll just jump and do it for me if I ask her. So I mean, that's the kind of sister she is. She just goes above and beyond to help me out. It's not just for me, it's for the caregiver for a lot of us in their family. So
because that's what families do. Families that pray together stick together.
If I had to describe my sister, I would describe her as kind-hearted, awesome, just beautiful person, beautiful sister she's just there. And I don't know, there's a lot, sometimes words can't explain how awesome people are, and she's one of those.
My advice to a caregiver of a loved one would be, sometimes you just have to take it one day at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time. But you need to take time for yourself. Family is important. The burn survivor is important. But ultimately, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of them.